A lot of couples get divorced in the first 7 years because new parenthood is hard. You don't get to just have a date night whenever you want, flip on a show whenever you want. All these things have to be thought about and planned. And, that doesn't, it changes overnight.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast.
Have you been looking for a way to prepare your partner for birth? I know you know how important it is that they're educated on not only like what's normal in birth, but also what are your options? How can they help relieve some of the sensations and pains of labor? What positions can they get you in? How can they support you in pushing? How can they advocate for you? But I also know that it's pretty hard to find information, resources, classes, courses that are, kind of specifically for a dad supporting you in labor. And so I wanted to introduce to you Dad Daze. This is a course obviously meant for husbands so that they can understand everything I just said. I'm going to talk them through what normal birth looks like so that they can understand what is normal and safe and expected and what's not. I'm going to talk to them about variations in labor and what they should do, what they mean, and if they need to call the doctor, if they can reassure you that things are safe, if they can say, oh yeah, remember he taught me this in Dad Daze. I'm also going to teach them about the psychology of things. I want them to understand what these changes feel like for you mentally, emotionally, physically, so that they can be the best support. We're also going to talk about each stage of labor and how they can help you with pain relief and comfort measures. Then, of course, I'm going to prepare them for afterbirth. We're going to talk about how they can support you in maintaining a positive and calm environment, how to be an active listener. We're going to talk about what they need to know about postpartum emotions and hormones and how that may impact your relationship and what role they can be to be the best support for you. And then finally, because we know the science so strongly suggests that having an educated and supportive partner of breastfeeding can be such an influential factor in your breastfeeding relationship, I'm also going to prepare them for breastfeeding. What they can do to bond with your baby, what they can do to encourage you to bond with your baby, and how do you re-split up the household tasks because you're going to be taking on all of baby duties or the majority of it. And so they are going to have to pick up some other slack in other ways. What will that look like? Dad Daze is designed to change your partner's life. This is not only going to prepare them to speak up and advocate and support you and understand what you're going through in pregnancy and postpartum, but it's really going to empower them to have the confidence to be that active participant in parenthood where they are not just showing up to do the task, but they're actually active, they're engaged, they enjoy it, they bring ideas to the table, they have the confidence to take the initiative to make your workload and your life balance easier. I want this for you. I created this course to help you educate your partner alongside the information that I give you in the Birth Lounge. And so you can think about the Birth Lounge and the Dad Daze course as kind of a husband and wife. The Dad Daze course is specifically for dads. The Birth Lounge is made for moms, but also your partners can go through it too to learn so much. So they go together. They're like peanut butter and jelly, but do know that they can stand alone as well. If you want to learn more about that, you can visit thebirthlounge.com/Dad Daze. That's DAD. D-A-Z as in zebra, E, Dad Daze, because postpartum can feel a little foggy, but our Dad Daze course is going to bring clarity to dads around birth. See you there.
Guess what, you guys? If you are hearing this, then that means that baby Saggy is here, and I am officially a mom. a mom on the outside. My baby is here and I'm on mat leave, and I am enjoying newborn snuggles and probably the same postpartum struggles that everyone else faces. And I'm just wrapped in that newborn bubble. So, one of the things that we did while I was preparing for mat leave is we looked at two things: our most popular podcast episodes and our most requested podcast episodes. And so, then we took those episodes and we decided to re-air them while I am on maternity leave to help you continue to get the best, most up to date, and most requested information and education while I am away. So today's episode is a re-air. You will be able to find today's guest bio in the show notes along with any of the links, and we will know what episode number the original episode was in the show notes as well. So I hope that you enjoy today's re-air, and please know that you guys are absolutely on my mind. I'm hanging out over on Instagram, so if you want a real play-by-play on our newborn bubble, head over there and say hi. Otherwise, enjoy today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Birth Launch Podcast. No, there's going to be some wind in the background. I'm sitting outside. We are having some work done on the inside, and so I had to choose between loud construction or some wind in the background. So I am sorry. You guys, today's episode is so good. I am joined by my friend and founder of the New Mom Boss podcast, Kallista Anderson. She is a registered nurse, a mom of 3, a lactation counselor, and a new mom coach. We are diving into all the things that you need to know about how your relationship with your partner change after a baby. And it's not just the sexual part. We are talking about emotional, physical, mental, all of it, right down to your daily activities and how you can keep that connection and that spark alive right after baby. Now, these are conversations that we have inside of Dad Daze, which is our online course for expecting fathers and male identifying partners to help them prepare for how to best support you in pregnancy, how to be the best support during birth, and then also what to expect in postpartum and how to support you through that transition. Also, we know that studies show men are almost just as impacted as women when it comes to the postpartum experience. And so we want to teach them how to advocate for themselves and keep that line of communication open between you and them. Check out Dad Daze at thebirthlounge.com/Dad Daze. That's DADDAZ as in zebra, E as in egg, DADDAZE, Dad Daze. All right, without further ado, you guys, I am so excited to have on Kallista. So, Kallista, welcome to the show.
Thank you, HeHe. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, today's talk is going to be, I think, very mind-blowing for a lot of people for a couple reasons. First of all, I don't do a lot of talking about postpartum. We talk about it, and I tell you to really kind of think about it. But, my specialty is really birth. It's prenatal birth, helping you really prepare for the birth and labor and delivery experience that you want, because I am a firm believer that the way your baby comes into this world wholeheartedly, 100%, without a doubt, will impact your postpartum experience. And so today we're going to talk about postpartum, but not a section that a lot of people talk about. We're going to talk about your relationship with your partner, which so many people do not think about before baby gets here. Then that relationship suffers once baby is here. And it takes a lot of work to get back. But you and I both talk about the power of preparing before baby gets here. And so we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on how your partner can support you and how you can support your partner. And we're going to talk about how you can truly strengthen your relationship after your baby gets here instead of falling into, I think, the common kind of relationship ditch that so many new parents find themselves in. But before we do all that, Kallista, will you tell us a little bit about who is with us, who's behind the microphone, who are you?
Thank you. Gladly. I would like to introduce myself, Kallista Anderson. So, I'm the founder of New Mom Boss, and my business is all about helping moms transition into the postpartum period and preparing the old self and the new self for the coming of baby. And one big thing I focus on is the relationship. I also have a podcast, the New Mom Boss podcast, and my professional background is nursing. I'm a registered nurse, a certified lactation counselor. And then my personal background, I'm a mom of 3 little kiddos, 2 not so little anymore, 8 and 9, and a baby. And also a certified lactation counselor. And fun fact, I'm a homeschooler and I love the Real Housewives of all the cities.
That's amazing. I love trash TV like that. I'm a
Oh my God.
big fan of like Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise. I could do all that all day. I love it. Okay, so I guess let's start out with, what does actually change after your baby gets here? I think a lot of people just kind of think you're going to insert a baby into your life and things are going to kind of go back to, okay, we just have a baby now. Not quite how that happens. So, what are the changes that happen? And then also, why should we be talking about these before the baby gets here? It seems a little preemptive.
Right. So I don't want to burst any mom's bubble, pregnant mamas out there, pregnant people. It's a beautiful time being pregnant, growing a human being in your belly. And it's so much fun, right? Like it's the baby shower, the registry, and looking at all the baby stuff, which can be overwhelming too. But it's almost like like a fantasy life that's about to happen in 9 months. And I don't wanna take away the fun and the fantasy because a lot of it is just miraculous, and you're gonna be on such a high, but there's a lot of changes that happen too, and if you don't prepare for those changes, the fantasy will crumble really, really fast. I mean, you carry this baby for 9 months, and you have a major event, birth, which you're a pro at helping moms at. Um, but then after the birth, that's like a one-day event, right? And then after that is this postpartum period or the 4th trimester, which is the next 3 months after birth, which is this big transitional time in both parents' lives. The baby is just getting used to living outside of the womb. The mom is learning how to breastfeed, healing from birth, and running a household. They're on maternity leave, or maybe they're going to be a stay at home mom. But whatever it is, it's like you're juggling all these different plates and they're spinning all this at the same time. And the relationship is there in the background, something that is not part of the checklist while you're pregnant a lot of times, because we don't talk about it. It's kind of like it's just kind of there, and it's gonna be there after, which it is, but it's also put on the back burner, not thought about, ignored, and it suffers. And you mentioned, the baby is born and is inserted into this relationship, and it can affect the relationship, but vice versa. The relationship can affect the baby. Your relationship plays such an important part of it being a parent and co-parenting that I really believe I'm into energies and like the energy of the home and preparing the home and the relationship. And so the baby will be affected indirectly and later down the line, who knows. And a lot of couples get divorced in the first 7 years because new parenthood is hard. You don't get to just have a date night whenever you want, flip on a show whenever you want. All these things have to be thought about and planned. And that it changes overnight. So that is why it is very important to help transition your relationship. And you do that before the baby is born.
I think two things that really suffer the most probably is communication and then affection. Whether that just be slowing down to connect with one another or actually having sex, or just spending time
close to one another. It doesn't even have to be physical touch. Maybe you just watch a TV show together, unplugged from your phone, and both paying attention to the same thing, right? That after birth period, you just don't have time to slow down for that kind of stuff. And so I love how you talked about, you kind of you have to make it happen.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, everyone's focus is on the baby, as it should be, right? There's this new, like we just recorded a podcast from my podcast, and we talked about, that first 5 days and how stressful that can be. And so, of course, all your attention is going to be on how do I keep this baby alive and grow it and make sure it's healthy. And, you know, that's how it should be. But when things kind of settle down, you kind of get into a groove with the baby, and you kind of you're feeling confident, you're starting to get the hang of things, then that's the time to to reconnect with your partner and carve the time out. And hopefully you would have done this kind of work and planning ahead of time so that you're both, you know what to expect. Um, I'm not saying all partners are like this, but a lot of partners feel, like left out. It's all about the baby and then the mom, and they're kind of like third place. And every we're all just it's kind of like baby, mom, maybe home, and then another thing, a pet, and then the husband or the partner. And so kind of talking about it beforehand and putting things in place so that everybody feels supported is really important for the immediate postpartum period. And then also like in the long term view of things. So, so let's say that we didn't have this conversation before our baby got here. Is it too late? Like, can we still sit down with our partner 5 days after birth, 2 weeks after birth, 6 weeks after birth, and say, this is not working for me? Or what do we do if we find ourselves in a rut of like, man, this just isn't our old relationship? Yeah. Okay. So, what I like to tell expectant parents, so I'll tell you, this is the same for, postpartum parents. As soon as you hear this, if you've never heard this before, I hope you can hear this and do this. Set a date night now. So I like to tell parents or moms and their partners, put it in your calendar. Whatever your due date is, add, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever feels like is good for you. And, you'll have some baby help. And just put it in your calendar. That way you don't forget. So even if you're already postpartum, just pick out a date in your calendar, and make a reservation to a restaurant and do all those little things. If it's in your calendar, you are 80% more likely to get it done than if you just leave it up to your memory. So that would be my first recommendation, is just I'm all about putting things in the calendar or it won't get done. So put a date night in the calendar. And then start talking about the changes. If you didn't get a chance to talk about it ahead of time, acknowledge the changes. I think it's a little, what's the word? Like, not gullible. I don't know. It's almost impossible for things to not change and just to accept that things are not going to be the same. You have a whole new human being in the house. So naturally the dynamics of your relationship is going to change, and that's okay. You're like a new little family now, and you're all learning how to be with each other as a new little family. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you point out such a good point that your relationship isn't going to be your old relationship. You guys are new people. You and your partner are new people. You have different roles now. Your lives are actually different. You got to reestablish what your relationship looks like while having a baby around, right? All right. So I'm big into love languages. I've read the book. I love to talk about love languages. Tell me how this impacts things. What do we need to know about love languages, and are they going to change postpartum?
Yes. So, um, Love Languages by Gary Chapman. So you're one of 5 things, right? Like, either receiving gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, and touch. I forget what it's exactly called, but touch. That's mine. I should know what it's exactly called, but it's the love language of touch. So knowing what your love language is and what your partner's love language is a great tool in transitioning your relationship into the postpartum period. So if you don't know, you can go online, take a test. There's actually a free app called Nudge by Gary Chapman. And you and your partner can both take the test and link your little accounts up, and it'll tell you what each other's love languages are. And it'll give you little reminders to give each other the love language. So one important the good thing about knowing this is that, like my love language is touch. So I in the beginning would think that's what my husband wants too. But that's not his love language. So I'm giving him love, but he's probably not receiving it as good as he could be because that's not his primary love language. His is words of affirmation. So once I learned that about him, I became more intentional in the way I showed him love. And, I'm more I grateful and thankful in my words and remind him how thankful I am and, text him those kinds of affirmations. So that was really helpful to know. And vice versa, he can tell me all the time, like, I'm great, you're doing such a good job. But it's like, but touch me, like I'm not feeling it and receiving it as much as if you were to touch me. So we know that about each other. And that way we can both feel love. Like two people can love each other a ton, but the other person may not receive it if it's not their primary love language.
I love that. Okay, you guys, I'm like geeking out because this is how I came into this journey of like feeling so in control of my body. And I know some people out there are not going to believe this, but I can truly tell which side I ovulate from. And it's because I truly feel it. Like I am so connected with myself. And it actually came from this temp drop, and I love it. Learning to track your fertility is so much more than just like, I do or I don't want to have a baby. This is not any sort of like woo-woo thing. I learned exactly what was going on. This makes so much sense because this is what my hormones are doing, right? So for listeners, I know I'm going to get a million messages of people saying like, what do you use? Here's what I do. I do cervical checking. Just anytime I go to the bathroom, I'm checking my cervical mucus, just being aware of it. It's nothing formal in my case, and it's what works for me. And then for a while there, I was waking up to take my temperature, and it just wasn't sustainable. So I opted actually for the temp drop, and I love it. It is a thermometer that I slide on my arm before I go to sleep, and it takes all the data points and takes my temperature throughout the night so that I don't have to do the work in the morning. When I wake up, I simply sync it to my phone and voila, I have all of the graphs and the data points that it has taken throughout the night on my phone, and it has the data for the past couple weeks and months so that I have nice patterns. I love being able to have that insight into my menstrual health. If you're interested in getting your own temp drop, I will drop a savings code in the show notes for you to grab that. You can save on your purchase of temp drop with the savings code in the show notes.
Okay, can you talk to us about what it was like having your primary love language be touch, but in the beginning, touching you in a sexual way was probably not favorable. You always have a breastfeeding, child on you, so touch, you sometimes will touch out, so touch not favorable, right? Right after birth, you're usually sore, your body's going through a lot, you are exhausted, so touch also not favorable. How do you balance those two? Or how do you explain to your partner how to balance those two? Because that is uber confusing. My love language is touch. Also, honey, I'm touched out.
Yeah. So luckily my husband's very like intuitive, and he, did not try to go there and go be sexual. Also very early on. And so for me, my preference for touch is not so much like a sexual type of touch, but more just being close together, cuddling, just caress my back, massages. That's my ultimate favorite. Like massage my shoulders, and I feel love. But as far as sex goes, the most common thing, we talked about American society earlier in my podcast and how, the 6 weeks postpartum clearance by the doctor and like you're clear to have sex, that's not like that's such an arbitrary number. Like who came up with that number? And it's like, yeah, unfortunately that's your one postpartum check with your doctor unless there's anything else going on. And if you're healing properly or you're healed, then you're kind of left to like see you next year for your annual exam. And you get home and you're like, yeah, the doctor said I could have sex, but more often than not, women do not feel ready to have sex after 6 weeks, even if they are completely healed, because your body is still healing and not just like your vagina. It's like your whole entire body went from 9 months pregnant to not pregnant overnight, and your uterus is still not back to its normal size. Your body, it feels different. Your body will never be the same. Not in a bad way, but just it takes time. And you may not feel like having sex. You're still trying to get used to breastfeeding. You have leaky boobs. And, the whole wardrobe is a thing, feeling comfortable in what you're wearing. And also if you're nursing and like finding the clothes that are comfortable and nursing friendly, it's a whole nother layer of like planning and thinking. So balancing that with a partner that wants to have sex, I think just, having that conversation of when you're ready and just explaining how you're feeling. Um, and, this could be also a conversation that can happen before the baby arrives. But obviously, if you didn't talk about this, there's it's never too late. And, you can have your touch. If you're a touch person, you can be touched another way. Or if your partner is a touch person, like, just kind of compromising and staying up to date, like checking in with each other every so often is really important so that you still feel connected and close. And, it may be different, but it's also very beautiful because once you're parents and you created this new little being together, you're connected on a whole nother level that you've never been connected on before. And I know for me, like seeing my husband be a dad and loving our babies, like that made me fall in love with him deeper. I think that's like my favorite thing about him is when I see him be like this good dad.
That's awesome. Okay, you're gonna make me cry. We have to steer clear of the good dad talks.
Oh,
I love it. I love a good dad. Okay, so with this, I want to talk about a little bit of reengaging in sex after baby because sex doesn't have to be penetrative is the first thing. There are so many things that you can do for sexual stuff with you and your partner to reestablish that. But then also there is a layer, or there are layers. It's mental. You got to be ready for that. It's emotional. You got to be ready for that. That 6 week appointment is purely physical. Like, okay, you're physically healed. How's your emotional state? How is your mental state? How's your overall well-being? Just because we have one piece of the puzzle doesn't mean that you are ready to and or obligated to re-engage in sex. And I love that you suggest having a conversation because again, we've circled back to communication takes such a hit after a baby, right? That things like this can really go almost unspoken and brushed under the rug because it doesn't seem like a priority until it is. And then it's a mega priority. So, in spirits of avoiding the mega priority emergency situation, how can we do little things after baby gets here to support one another? Your support from your partner is very important, obviously. And actually, studies show that the number one support for a lot of success in a lot of things is actually partner support. So interesting tidbit that. But also, what about supporting your partner? A lot of times we don't talk about, you know,
partners in this situation because everything is baby focused. And then the next thing is, that mom or that birthing person focus. And then dad or the partner kind of fall to the wayside and they feel almost unloved or forgotten. So it's a two-way street there. What are your recommendations for doing that kind of from ground zero? From the minute you bring home your baby, having that open communication and that two-way street of support for you and your partner.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Yeah, so again, this is a conversation that can be had before the baby comes. That's like the ideal, right? But once the baby comes, just having that conversation, like, how would you like to be supported? You as the new mom birthing person, how do you want your partner to support you? I talked about love language, like we talked about love language. So that's one way, right? Is there any other way that's not, under that umbrella? And how would your partner like to be supported? So just ask. I think we do this like, oh, if they love me, they'll know what I like the whole mind reading thing. Like, I don't think we do it purposely. Like, it's not a game, but it's like, why don't we just ask each other, tell each other what we like? And that way we don't have to guess and get things wrong or become resentful if they don't do things the way we want them to do it. So just number one, ask each other. And then number two, ask your partner how they can have their needs met, or not necessarily their needs, but how can they feel supported outside of you? And same with you as a new mom, because we're not each other's everything. Like, we can say that in like a loving way, like you're my everything, but truly, honestly, like we are not, like my husband's not my girlfriend. Like he won't watch Housewives with me. I need to go outside of my husband to get additional support. So we're each other's like innermost circle, like that dot in the middle of the circle. But then they're concentric rings, right? You got to go outside each other to find support. But ask your partner ahead of time or now, so that, because especially like men do not think about this. Like they don't even think they need support, right? They don't like need their guy friends and guys night out. At least my husband doesn't. But they do need additional support, even though they don't know it. So, looking for that other outlet and other support outside of your home, whether it's, a dad's club or even the friends that they have, and just making sure they set, date nights with their friends or date days. Because it's also important to get a piece of your old self. And I like to say merging your old self with your new self and holding on to a piece of that even after the baby is born. So whatever that is, a hobby, something they, whatever it is, like playing sports and picking up a game here and there, um, so that you can just have that balance.
So if you had to give new parents one conversation to have prenatally to prepare for postpartum, what would it be?
It would be that. I would say, how do we get support? How do we get support? It's not just one person. I think it's, how do we build our village? Also, that's part of in my course, New Mom Prep School. I take my students how to build their village, their support system. You may or may not need them, but doing the research ahead of time, vetting them, making sure it's someone you would want to work with in case you need them, like a therapist, like a marriage counselor. That's, instead of having to do that when you're in the postpartum period, you're sleep deprived, you haven't showered in days. So you're just, how can you even add this research thing to your plate? So yeah, I would say that is the one piece of advice I would give as a couple, is to build your village ahead of time.
It is just so, I think, taboo almost to think beyond your birth, right? people just think it's all about pregnancy, it's all about birth, and then we're sent home with this tiny human, like, oh my God, I have to keep this thing alive, and I'm not even sure I know how to change a diaper, right? Everything is a learning curve in the beginning, and you talked about that. Postpartum is certainly a time that you've got to plan for, you've got to prepare for, and I want to kind of wrap up here because I want people to really, really take this. When we make a plan, it is okay to stray from that plan. So, can you walk us through navigating from your postpartum plan and confidently changing your mind postpartum when that is not what you thought postpartum would be like? You never thought you would choose to formula feed. You never thought you would have a C-section, and now you're having, the repercussions of that. You never thought that your partner and you would be in this situation. Talk us through confidently navigating those situations, and how do you pivot and change from your plan and choose something that actually is aligned with you and your baby and your partner.
It's so good. So, number one, I want everyone to just give yourself some grace. Grace, like we all need it. Nobody is perfect. Even if you have a perfect plan, it will not go according to plan 100%. And the way I like to say things is you get ready 80% of get 80% ready so that you can be ready for the 20% unknown. You know, a plan is a plan. It's in the word. It doesn't mean it's done. It's happened. No, it's what we would like to happen. And if it doesn't, give yourself some grace. So whether, I've been there. I planned on and exclusively breastfeeding my first child, my daughter, and I ended up using formula or supplementing, which is fine. But there were things I could have done better, or, I just didn't have the education I needed. And, I could have prepared breastfeeding support ahead of time, so the second time around, I did it differently. And that's okay. I gave myself some grace, and, she's healthy. We both lived, we're okay, and you'll be okay. No matter what you think should have happened, just look at today, look where your feet are, follow your feet, you're fine. And the holding on to the birth plan and the postpartum plan, that's all just exercise to get you on the path with a direction, because you don't want to be aimless. That has its the wandering journer, that's a beautiful life too, but it can be stressful when without a plan. So definitely have a plan, but when it doesn't go the way you want it, just have some grace and, you know, enjoy your baby. I think that's the number one thing, is just enjoy your baby, and everything else will fall into place.
I could not agree more with that. And I'm serious. We're wrapping up there. If you need to backspace 15 seconds a couple times to re-listen to that, if you need to star this episode, favor this episode, you guys, we are so serious. Look, formula is a tool in our toolbox to use when we need it. It should not come with any sort of shame or guilt, and all of that is just honestly societal bullshit that has been put on you. It really doesn't mean anything. It is not indicative of you as a parent, you as a birther, you as anything really. It is a tool in our toolbox, and so I think both Kallista and I can say that we hold a space for you to have a shameless and guiltless transition to formula if that is what you choose. And we also want you to feel 100% supported in breastfeeding if that's what you choose. I think both of us have cultivated spaces online that are truly open to whatever is really best for you. And that cannot be said for a lot of spaces in pregnancy and new motherhood. You very rarely find a space that truly is unbiased and non-judgmental and truly is on board with whatever you choose. That's very hard to come by. So, Melissa, oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here today. You dropped so many good nuggets of wisdom, and I really, really hope people will take home your final note of give yourself grace. This is a brand new job. You are like on the job training. There was no onboarding process or anything thrown into it. First day of work, we are expecting you to perform. So give yourself some grace. Kallista, before we go, for the people who really resonated with the things that you said today, where can they find you online? And then also your podcast, and also how can they join your online community?
Thanks for that, HeHe. And before I wrap up too, I just want to thank you for having me and doing a little pod swap. I really enjoyed our conversation. And yes, so you can find me on Instagram, New Mom Boss, and my website is newmomboss.com, and my podcast is the New Mom Boss Podcast. So everything is uniform. So yeah, you can follow me. I love DMs. So if you're interested in anything, any kind of support in new motherhood, feel free to DM me and we can chat.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome. I love sharing this space with other people who just get motherhood. This is awesome. Oh my goodness. All right, Kallista, thank you so much for joining me. This was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate all of your knowledge and you being so open and honest and really transparent about what postpartum can look like and the challenges that you and your partner in your relationship might face, but how, with the proper support and the hard work, you can actually get your relationship back on track. All right, listeners, I will see you again next week. Until then, take care.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I love hanging out with you, and it is an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and tell others why they should be listening to the Birth Lounge podcast too. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent without all the trauma that you so commonly hear about on social media. New episodes air every Wednesday and Friday. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. I'm HeHe, and this is the Birth Lounge Podcast.